I'm Tass Mellis of The Starters.
This is Ben Golliver with the Open Floor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ludlow from NBA Inside Stuff.
I'm OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, I'm Elena Donon, and welcome to the Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Double Clutch Podcast. I'm Mike Miller, and tonight I am joined by the man whose new memoir you can find in all good online bookstores. Divan Invitation. Oh God, I had a really good line. I'll start again. A man. This is going to be an excellent show. A man whose memoirs, Divan Interventions, Did I Make the Bed or Did the Bed Make Me? It's Tom, Hall of Fame. That was so much better when I practiced it myself. One terrible introduction. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, evening, Mark. I'm all right. I'm enjoying this wider screen on Twitch tonight because there's just the two of us. So people get more bed per shot, which is good.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good. It's good. There is just the two of us today because we don't count Kirk. Even though there is three people on the stream, you can see him tucked away in the back of the bus there. Thank you, Kirk, as always, for making this work. Lots and lots of things to get through. Not a lot of time to do it, as we tend to find every Monday night when we cram a week's worth of news into a 1 hour show. Let's start with a bit of sad news. It came out tonight that Elgin Baylor passed away, aged 86, a Hall of Famer, 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA. He was the Rookie of the Year in 58-59, which was the same year he won All-Star Game MVP, which is just pretty impressive to me. Not only that a rookie made it, but took away the top honor from it. Once dropped 71 in a game. That was pre-3-point line for you Devin Booker fans. Gets a lot of credit for taking the game into a vertical sphere. Like the father of hang time, essentially, with his jump shots, where he used to sort of kick his legs out and just float. And he was part of one of the NBA's first real power duos with Jerry West, and was part of 8 Laker teams that made finals. And it's where the Lakers-Boston rivalry started. Was his team getting spanked every time they went. I think he was part of the first ever 4-0 sweep on the receiving end of. And unluckily for him, he retired 9 games into the 71-72 season following a knee injury. The Lakers then reeled off 33 straight wins and won the championship that year. So he often gets overlooked as just how great he was. And then post-playing career, he was an executive for the Clippers for 22 years. And, well, the Clippers sucked, but Donald Sterling was the main reason for that, not Elgin Baylor. Rest in peace to one of the all-time greats. He's going to be missed. What a phenomenal player he was. Let's move on from one Lakers legend to a current Lakers legend, LeBron James.
Lakers legend. It feels strange to
maybe
crowning that already.
Lakers, legend.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Well, he's won a title. He's won a title in 50% of the full seasons he's been there.
Yeah, I suppose
that's not too bad. 1 out of 2. Anyway, he's out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain. Solomon Hill diving on a loose ball. I think we've got a clip coming up here. Still stayed in the game because he's tough like that. Took another shot and called a timeout eventually before exiting. Yeah, you can just see the sort of the knock there on the screen. For those of you who aren't listening, of course, who are listening and not watching, you can watch us, twitch.tv/DoubleClutchUK. And whilst we're here, we might as well do a bit of housekeeping. If you're not already following us at Double Clutch UK, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those lovely places, YouTube, come and join our Discord, discord.me/doubleclutch. So LeBron. So per Jeff Stotts, former guest of the show, that's the 8th time he's injured his ankle, but he's only missed 3 games as a result. He's currently out indefinitely. What sort of impact do you think this is going to have on this Lakers team as they sort of fumble their way to the playoffs now with AD out as well?
Yeah, I think they'll be all right in terms of getting to the playoffs. Obviously, we don't know the exact return date of when LeBron's going to be coming back, or AD really. I think getting to the playoffs is okay, and I think they'll be fairly happy with that. I don't think, especially with not having all the fans in home court, we know isn't as big as an advantage as it has been. And their team is so good that, for me, they're still favourites for the whole thing if they're all fully fit. So I think if they get to the playoffs and they get those 2 back, they won't be too bothered about the seeding. It'll just be prioritising having the 2 main men back fit and healthy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the sort of the scary things about LeBron, though, is that, aside from a couple of back strains in Miami, which he then reworked his entire back. I believe with a guy who made his way back from almost paralysis or something crazy, some kind of parachute regiment guy from one of the Air Forces or something. He obviously, a couple of years ago, Christmas Day, tore his left groin, missed 17 games straight. They went from being a team that would have made 7th in the West to being completely out of the playoffs. He tried to return too soon. Do you think there's a chance here with AD out as well that we get a similar sort of drop off?
Well, I mean, we've said long before the season and throughout, we've made fun of this Lakers roster, and beyond those two, like, it's just not very good at all. And someone like you're looking like Dennis Schroeder is going to have a massive weight on his shoulders, and when that's like one of your next best players, you're kind of asking a lot. And it probably would be one of the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the West without those two in LeBron and AD on the team. So we are going to see a drop off. It's whether they can kind of keep afloat and not just lose literally every single game. I think they'll be okay come the end of the year.
I agree with you in your earlier comment as well that they're still the overall favourites, because once they get to the playoffs, if they're healthy, this is a different beast. That's when it really counts. Are you surprised at all then this morning, according to the bookies, the Nets are the favourites to win the title?
I mean, they're the team of the moment, aren't they? They're going on, like, the games they played recently are amazing, apart from Aaron Gordon killing them the other night. But yeah, they're just the team on everyone's lips, and they've got so many good players. Their depth, even though they've got no defense on the depth, their depth is better than the Lakers. And so it's where it comes down to the Anthony Davis, LeBron, and whether they can contain those guys. Because I think in terms of defense, I think the Lakers have got slightly more in terms of guarding the Nets as much as you can guard those guys than the Nets have got guarded someone like AD, because he could just crush them inside. And whether it's DJ or Blake or anyone they're going to throw in there, Noel Pell.
Not buying the Claxton yet.
I love Claxton, but he's not stopping AD. So that's what it'll come down to for me.
So we had a question come in linked to LeBron's injury, and we were going to talk about it anyway, but let's roll them together. So from Richard Fang, with LeBron and Embiid out with injuries, who would you say is the front runner for MVP? So he said before the show, should we do like a rundown, like an order? So how many have you got in your list of MVPs?
Probably about seven or 8, maybe.
Okay, more than me. I've got 6. Why don't you start us off then with your 8th?
I do think, just to kind of preface this, and I know we were on about Jokic, and I wrote my piece about how Jokic was the statistical leader. That was before Embiid and LeBron got injured, and people were kind of talking about. They were saying, "Oh, it's between Embiid, LeBron, and Jokic," and then both of those guys have got injured. And since then, the narrative seems to have shifted to, "Oh, it's wide open now. Anyone can win it," and everyone's just forgetting about Jokic. So I do still think he is the clear front runner for me, and then. For LeBron and Embiid, it just depends how long they're out. I still think they're kind of up there, but if everyone else is playing every game like Jokic and Giannis and everyone, then they're still ahead for me. Giannis is up there.
Stop this habitual fence sitting. You've prefaced it enough. Based on if the season finished, or we're predicting the season to finish normally, if everything stayed the way it is now, so we're expecting LeBron is out indefinitely. Okay. So what's that? 3 to 4 weeks. Embiid is out for at least 2 weeks. Give me your 8th pick.
So Jokic is the clear for me, getting it. Then we've got Giannis.
No. From reverse.
From reverse.
I want your bottom. Okay. Let's work our way up. See where we align.
So we've got Steph, Dame.
There we go. Steph and Dame is your 8th and 7th.
Yeah. Harden.
Okay. So Harden, I've got him higher. I because of the injuries, I think by the end of the season, if all things stay the same, LeBron would be as low as that.
Okay. I've got LeBron next.
I've got Embiid there. Injuries have wiped him out.
I've got Luka next.
I've got Harden.
I've got Embiid, and then I've got Giannis, and then I've got Jokic.
I've got Dame, then I've got Giannis and Jokic. So the top 2 with a set, and I completely agree with what you're saying about. Obviously, your piece came out way before these injuries happened, and he's clearly the statistical leader. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's narrative driven a lot of the time, and it's a media they vote on it. Which is just ridiculous.
I'm going to move Dame up, actually. He needs a bit more credit. I'm going to move him level with Giannis.
He's carried the 29th worth defense with a carcass of its best players to, the 5th seed, 5.5 games back. averaging 30.3, 4.4, 7.6, 5.5. That's mad. One of the things that bumped Harden up for me, because I know we like talking about the Nets this year. So the Nets record is 29-14, but with Harden there, it's 22-7. That's 75.8% winning percentage. That's mad. Absolutely mad. Be interesting to see how they do on this road trip with Kyrie out. But the media itself, the narrative has been in the past few days that Giannis needs more talk and that Dame needs more talk. And obviously, there's smaller markets. We're not hearing that still for Jokic. Which do you think there is like just a level of just they don't respect him? They don't think this is genuine because the Blazers have basically got the same record. They have got the same record as the Nuggets. So how albeit that Dame is leading the league in clutch points and things like that, so he's more clutch. His statistical output, as you've shown, is not as much and not as influential as Jokic.
I do think it's coming. I think that more people look into it now with it being so wide open. I think people have got to try and look, whether it's at the statistics or whatever, just to try and to find some margins between these guys. I think Jokic is going to get more recognition, or I hope he does anyway. And you're right, he hasn't kind of got the highlight plays that Dame has. I just think he's not really got the brand of the other guys, has he? He's a bit of a goofy guy. Like, he doesn't look like, if you were painting this picture of the most valuable guy in the league, he's not toned at all. He's like, it just looks a bit weird. He's massive. He's not your kind of stereotypical, and he's a center as well, which historically don't really get the recognition of guards and stuff like that. And I was listening to the Dunked On podcast earlier, and they were saying that he is probably the best offensive guy in the league, but defensively is a bit of a liability. The same could be said about Dame, but I think because Dame is a guard rather than a center, and typically you're not as reliant on your guards for defense as you are centers, that maybe that gives the edge to Dame over Jokic. I don't know. It's a bit of a niche argument, but I thought it was an interesting one.
So in a nutshell, it would be a bad look for the NBA to give its most valuable player to the guy who looks like he shouldn't be on the court because he looks out of shape.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would give it to him. I think it'd be amazing. I love the guy. But yeah,
we agreed weeks back. He's my pick as well for MVP. I definitely think Giannis needs more recognition in there. I'm glad you've got him as high as 2. Interestingly, neither of us have picked a player for the Jazz or the Suns, who are the 1 and 2 in the West, which is just given that the West is by and large considered to be the much stronger conference. It's odd that they don't even get a look in. Why do you think that is?
I mean, if you're going for the Jazz, it'd be Mitchell or Gobert? The thing is, these are all good players, and there's so many good players now. There's been a massive increase over the past few years of these guys that score over 20, 25 a game. But they're not the most valuable. And someone like Gobert, you can't have a most valuable player who can't stay on the floor for a lot of playoff minutes. Mitchell's not the caliber of scorer or defender of these other guys. And then you look at, there's been some noise coming out on Twitter
today.
He
did average 50 points in a playoff series last year.
Yeah, he did. In the playoffs last year, though, not this regular season.
No. Yeah, but when you say he's not the same caliber scorer, he is capable of it. But I get what you're saying. For me, it's essentially that these are teams where it's the team identity that is propelling them rather than an individual franchise star. Obviously, with the Suns, I think Booker would have more of a case if he had more of a history of winning.
Would you have Booker ahead of Chris Paul at the moment? Because there's been a lot of weird noise about Chris Paul this week on Twitter.
So I'm not sure I would, because it's hard to say, because obviously they went 8-0 in the bubble, but the jump from last season to this season, with essentially Chris Paul being the orchestrator of the offense instead of Ricky Rubio, is phenomenal. Like, I've got no doubt that Booker has ascended into a higher caliber of player, but Chris Paul seems to have been the X factor that has got that whole team clicking. Well,
It's Jokic then. End of discussion. That's it.
It's
Close the
Jokic.
book.
It's not going to be though. That's going to be really bizarre that they're not going to. I don't think he's going to get the attention. I hope he does, but I don't think he's going to. Let's move on to another injury that's going to potentially impact an award. LaMelo Ball has broken his wrist, although apparently it's in the area around his shooting thumb, which to me is his hand and not his wrist. So a bit of discrepancy there. I've heard, anything from a few weeks, which again is quite a significant time in this truncated season, to out for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. If he is out, do you think he's done enough to win Rookie of the Year by season end?
No, because he's going to miss nearly half the year, which just seems that's way too much to especially in a shortened season, to give those men. And he didn't even start for the first quarter of the season. So it just seems a bit much to give him that. But then I guess you can then go down the argument of if not him, then who else? And someone like Anthony Edwards, who is now the current favourite, he's only just started playing really well. So it's
recency bias.
Swings and roundabouts, yeah, really. It's tough.
Yes, so Melo started 21 of 41 games, and as a starter, so I've removed his bench stats, but as a starter, he was putting up 26 and 6 on splits of 46.4, 42.6, 81.1. They're all significantly up from his bench splits, which I think were like 42, 33, and I think he was even shooting like 75% from the line. And in that time, they are only 500. I say only 500. That's quite impressive for the Hornets. It's not just in the Rookie of the Year race, odds and things like that. There's a massive impact. But Jamie from Top Shot Sonics, which is a pretty good Top Shot British show that I've started watching, had put out a really good tweet today showing how drastically it's impacted his card value as well. So people are like, this is potentially costing people money in a way we never thought was possible before. So Anthony Edwards then, obviously he's coming into his own right now. Dropped 42 the other night. Appears to be blossoming. Head to head as starters, their stats are eerily similar, except Melo's got higher field goal percentages and assists. But essentially it's his to lose now, isn't it? If he carries on performing the way he has done in the past sort of 10, 15 games or so, there's no way they won't give it to him. I mean,
yeah, and it's coincided with Chris Finch, the new coach, coming in Minnesota, and he just seems to have empowered the whole team. They seem to understand where to be and where to go, and it's not just these guys kind of going out to get their own. And so he looks. There was a bit of worry about him coming in, where it was like, we don't know if this guy actually likes playing basketball, but he certainly started to fit in a bit more and look the part. And even when he started looking good, it was like he's good, but is he a number one pick? And now he's starting to kind of put it together a bit more. All seem to have started with that dunk where he nearly killed that guy. I can't remember who it was.
What's his name? Yantawabi? I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, Watanabe.
The
Raptors, was it? Yeah, absolutely killed him. So yeah, I'm glad to see him doing well, and I'm even more proud because it's the medal I'm wearing all the time now. I got to ask him his first question on the NBA Draft Zoom Media Day, so he's my guy, Anthony Edwards.
What was it? What was the question?
I watched it back the other night just to remind myself because it's on YouTube. And you can tell I'm so nervous asking this question because the guy's there and he's like, okay, we'll go around to all these journalists. We'll start with Tom Hall. And I just freeze sat here in my bedroom with me.
Thought there was another Tom Hall.
I just absolutely bricked it. I think I said something like, you're known as a scorer. Is there anything that you've been working on? Anything we don't know you're going to bring to the game and surprise us with? And he said defense. Surprise, surprise. So
he should have said the way he handles the media, because some of his sound bites recently have just been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. The Hernan Gomez comment about shooting the piss off the ball was just it was just hilarious. Just not something I expected to hear in an NBA presser. Obviously, we've said he's coming into more of his own right now. Chris Finch, shout out to former Sheffield Sharks head coach Chris Finch, has taken the helm. Not the best start for them. I think he was 0-5, wasn't he, before he got his first W. But the way he's using him, the way he's renowned for developing players, does it beg the question, who is Minnesota's franchise player? Are we ready to go there? I can see you frowning, so I know you're not. So talk to me. What has Cat done in the past 6 seasons?
That's such a horrible question to answer. Yeah, they've not won hardly anything, have they? I do. Is Cat overrated? That's what it comes down to, really, isn't it?
No, I don't necessarily think he's overrated. I just think that he may not necessarily be a franchise player. I mean, he's still an all-star. He puts up all-star numbers. But the only time they've made the playoffs in his in his time was when Jimmy Butler dragged them to the playoffs and they beat Denver in the last game of the season to get the 8th seed.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked better as well with Chris Finch. I think he's definitely, you can't give it to Edwards yet. He's definitely the franchise guy. I think it's good for the franchise that they've improved, because I think he was kind of eligible for the next guy in like the Bradley Beal, Anthony Davis conversations of when is this guy going to ask for a move and one out, even though I guess Beal hasn't actually done that yet, but he's always in the talks for it. And so I think it's good for the franchise. I think they're not in a position to be tanking at the moment. I know they've been terrible this year, but they came into the year hoping to do some damage. They had D'Lo, who's just been a disappointment since. I know he's been injured as well, but it's good that they finally got some positivity with Edwards. And I think as long as Cat is at least as good as he's been in the past few years, or continues to make some strides to improve, they'll be okay.
Yeah, you mentioned the tanking point. They lose their pick if it's not top 3 as well, don't they? So with the sort of the smoothing out of the draft lottery odds, they've actually got less chance of keeping it than they would have done sort of 2 years ago. So it's not in their best interest necessarily to completely bottom out. Let's talk more Nets briefly. I realise we've mentioned them twice already, but Blake Griffin had his Nets debut last night. Just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, he only played about 15 minutes, came off the bench, only had 2 points, but they were a surprising 2 points.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen as many many headlines rather, all over the internet just about these 2 points. It's like Blake Griffin dunks for the first time in 2 years, like he's back, everybody. But I mean, it's fine. It was what we kind of expected coming back. He said he could have played more minutes, but obviously they're just easing him back into action, seeing how they can plug him in slowly. I'm not there'll be the odd game, I think, where he kind of goes off for 20 to 30, just because the guys will feed him the ball a lot when he's wide open. But yeah, I'm not going to overreact to it too much. I think come playoffs, we said this last time, how many minutes he actually plays for them will prove his value to them, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know if you spotted the banned word that's come up, but it's the word that's quite off. Oh, we've had two banned words. So one is what this team aren't great at, and the other is this team's name. So brilliant. That's Kirk. You need to tell us how long these are banned for, so we can actually figure out when we can say it again. I thought he looked good in that specific role of bringing some energy off the bench. He got the block on Beal, which I was kind of like, oh, bit surprising. Just in general, even though he's got masses of height and his athleticism alone, despite it being sapped, should still be significantly higher than Beal's has ever been. He took a charge and he got a few boards. I was just like, if that's what he can plug in and do for 1.8 million, I'd take it, because he's not going to mess around with a locker room. He's just going to buy into this because it's his chance to redeem himself in a way. So I was quite pleased with it. Let's move on from that team, since we're banned from talking about half the things that you talk about with them. Yeah. Trades. Trevor Ariza. He was traded not long after our pod last week. I can't
believe we're going into like a big trade segment in trade deadline week, and then we're kicking things off with a second rounder for Trevor Ariza.
Second rounder and Myers Leonard, who is just been shamed out of the league, basically.
We don't talk about him.
Yeah. So I'm doing alphabetically.
Oh, okay. I see now. Yeah, it makes sense.
So the most traded player in NBA history finds a new home in Miami. Apparently, he's from Miami anyway, so he's been working out a lot there as well. There was sort of, as soon as I read that, I was like, that sounds like tampering to me. But it kind of shows the fragility of team chemistry as well. Since, I suppose just before he joined, they started this losing streak, but they're on a 4-game losing streak now. He's been part of 2 of them. Played 16 minutes, then 19 minutes. He's 35. Is this a needle mover?
No, it's one of them, isn't it, where, like you say, it's 35. It is only a second rounder, and they're getting off Myers Leonard, who clearly isn't welcome anymore. Even on the Thunder, where he's ended up, they're saying that he's not going to be part of their plans. I think it's probably worth a gamble for the Heat, who are after guys that can kind of fill the Jay Crowder role. I don't think he's up to that standard, but if you can give them some minutes, a little bit like the Blake thing, you're not looking to him for big contributions, but if you can give them like a couple of threes and a bit of defense, maybe it'd be worth it. Something I didn't realize, but I was reading on ESPN earlier. Obviously, it's another pick for the Thunder, and they've now got like into the 30s.
32, isn't it, over the next 7 years?
Yeah, it's like proper NBA 2K stuff. But they also get a $12 million trade player exception for Ariza because they took Myers Leonard into the Gallinari one, and so that meant that it wasn't just a straight swap for salaries. So they now have a big TPE that lasts until like summer 2022. So some more shrewd deals by Sam Presti and the Thunder there.
I'll tell you what, I really hope this is more fruitful than the Boston. You know, we've got a treasure chest of assets, and what have we seen for it thus far? But there's still time, so we're not out on that yet. Okay, Ariza, to be honest, I mean, 12.5 million contract I thought was an overpay when he signed that. He wasn't great in Portland last year, although they're notoriously bad at wing defense and have been for about 5 years now. He got cooked a lot last season. Even do you remember the Trae Young nutmeg, which he was not impressed about. I guess they're just scrapping for that wing player who can spread the floor and just trying to find any bodies to fit in there. I don't expect them to be done just yet. The other trade so far, which is slightly bigger, and if I'm doing it alphabetically, you can tell there's only two trades. PJ Tucker.
What about Hamidou Diallo? You forgot that.
Oh, that was the week before. Though. That was the week before. We didn't touch on that last week. We should have touched on that. But I didn't think that was a bad pickup by Detroit.
I like Diallo. I think he's really good. I think he's very underrated.
And he's evolving nicely as a solid player.
And we're not just saying that because both of us have invested in him on Top Shot.
I bought him for $6 and sold him for 10.
Did you? Oh, you got off him.
And as soon as I sold him, I was like, I should have held him.
Yeah, I've got a lot of stock in Diallo.
Anyway, PJ Tucker. Houston sent Tucker for Rodions Kurucs. It's a great name. To the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks sent back DJ Augustine, DJ Wilson, and the Bucks' first-round pick in 2023. Houston also received the right to swap the 2021 second-round pick for Milwaukee's 2021 second-round pick. Apparently, when PJ and Giannis met, I don't know if you saw this, but they both sort of said to each other, you know, I don't have to guard you anymore, basically. Which I guess is a sign of mutual respect.
Giannis said that to PJ Tucker as well.
Apparently they both agreed. I mean, PJ Tucker, despite it, what is he, about 6'5"? So he gives up Giannis is 6'11", 6
Doesn't have to run out to the corner to stop a three-pointer.
Yeah. So PJ Tucker for me was kind of the guy that most teams, in fact, I put a tweet out saying that any team looking to contend for a title this year should have PJ Tucker at the top of their trade want list, because he just fits in so many ways. I know he's 35, but he's able to be a lot more physical than someone like Ariza is. He can guard more positions. He's not great at guarding wings, but he's serviceable and he spreads the floor really well. I think this year, I wouldn't look at his stats this year because he's not been engaged the way he has in previous seasons. This is a guy who last year was asked to play as a center, which is just obscene, and will just plug and play anywhere, really. So how do you think this is going to change the Bucks' chances?
Yeah, I just think it gives them that flexibility. As you said, he's most well known for his really tough defense, and he gives them a lot more versatility of how you can play Giannis. You're not putting as much pressure on him. I do think like the rest of the trade is kind of gone under the radar as well, because in the same way that I really like Diallo, and he's this like under the radar young guy, Kurucs I've liked for a couple of years. I feel like he was really good 2 years ago, and then since then we've not heard about him since. So if he can give them any contribution and look like his former self, I think he's decent and give them some minutes. And getting off DJ Augustin as well, because he was not the guy that they were hoping for, and he was pretty big salary as well. So all that without really giving up too much is a decent move for the Bucks.
Yeah, I like I say, PJ Tucker was my number one choice if I'm a contender to go after, and they've got him, so that's only a good thing. I wonder if they can keep him in the off season. let's have a quick look. We had some listener questions related to the trade deadline, so let's jump into them quickly. Ben Bean 5, NBA trade deadline is this Thursday. Any trade predictions? That's difficult to
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of rumors going around. Any particular rumor that stands out to you?
I think obviously all the big names are the one dominating the headlines. I do think we see a lot of these little on the fringe ones with second rounders. I think teams are really reluctant to move firsts, especially mid-season. So, whether we see ones where it's like a second rounder for this old guy, a bit like the Ariza one, or multiple second rounders to try and make things happen. I just think teams are now so reluctant to give up first unless it's a clear win for them. And there's just a lot of people that want these big name players to try and bolster their chances either without a lot to give up, or they're just reluctant to. I would probably put a bet on the Heat making one more move. I know there's been some rumours today. It was Kevin O'Connor who was saying they want someone like Lowry or Oladipo. Oladipo is an interesting name because if Houston don't give him up, he's just leaving for free in the summer. So are they holding out for something big? Would they let him go for like a bad first or a handful of second rounders? It'd be interesting to see what they do with him, or just let things play out. But then, as well as that, you've got names like Lonzo, Aaron Gordon, Dinwiddie, Drummond. Like, who knows? I don't think we'll see as much as people are hoping for. But
we very rarely do. We had a couple of other trade questions as well. Flying Tortoise, as a follow-on from Ben Bean's question, which team needs to make a trade at the deadline? And then Ross McLeod, with Aaron Gordon requesting a trade, what's his value and who would benefit from him? Mm-hmm. So the Kyle Lowry one to the Heat is interesting. I looked at what they would have to give up. And to make the salaries work, you're looking at Dragic, who obviously they signed and gave him sort of a golden handshake, essentially. He's got 2 years left on his contract. Avery Bradley, and then someone like Chris Silver as well to make the money work. Plus, I'd throw a pick in there as well. But that seems like a lot to give up for Lowry, who is a free agent this summer. You've got another year on top of that for Goran, and he's a year older than Goran as well. So
if it's just one pick, I think I'd do that. I did read earlier that they'd want one of Hero or Duncan Robinson, which makes it a little bit tougher for me.
Well, Duncan Robinson is a free agent this summer, so if he's being sent to the Raptors, I doubt he's re-signing with what their trajectory looks like. So you're looking at Hero then, and I don't know. The Heat seem reluctant to kick any one of those sort of fines out there. It's a difficult one. I've got a trade for Boston. I'm going to run it by you first. Okay. So would you agree, I'm going to preface this, would you agree that since the departure of Al Horford, the Celtics front court has lacked something significant?
Yes.
Yeah. In his time with the Celtics, Horford averaged 13.7, 7 and 4.6. This player averages 16.5, 14.7, 6.8 and 4.2 on a team with one of the worst offensive ratings in the league. Defensively, this player is in the 74th percentile for block percentage, 81st for foul percentage, that's a good thing, and the 84th and 89th percentile for offensive field goal rebounding, defensive field goal rebounding. Does that sound like a relatively all right plug and play for an Al Horford type of player?
I mean, statistically, yeah, but I'm going to be unhappy with the name that you've come out with.
What if you could get him for just picks as well? You didn't have to actually send a body back because you could absorb him into the trade exception that needs to be used, I think, by September-ish.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bit of the off season, yeah.
And then you'd have him for another year as well. Would Aaron Gordon float the Boston Celtics boat?
I mean, I like Aaron Gordon a lot. I just think I was all for that. We need to use this trade player exception before the end of the season because we need to give these guys a shot. You don't know how many years you're going to have to compete. Having seen us this year and how inconsistent we are and just basically how bad we've looked for the past few weeks, I wonder if it's like, why invest things in this season? Because I just don't think we've got any chance of... I know I'll take this back in the playoffs because we always seem to pull something off. But I just don't know if it's worth throwing picks in for a guy that is kind of only a fix this year. And I know we'd have
You'd
him
have
on
him
a
for all
contract
of
for another
next
one.
year as well.
But there's been a lot of rumours where Danny Ainge has come out recently and said, in the off-season, we can do something better. Whether that's just him playing mind games with all the other GMs, I don't know. It could well be that we see him pull the trigger before the deadline on Thursday with something that none of us have been talking about. If it was someone like Gordon or Harrison Barnes and we're giving up multiple picks, I'd be quite surprised because it seems like a high price to pay without actually taking us over the edge beyond teams like the Nets or the Lakers or the Bucks or Philly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm just trying to think of, because the front court is the issue completely for the Celtics, and who is available at a reasonable price to fill that gap. You know, if this year isn't the year you go for it, fine. But it's weird how, you know, you have a little losing streak, and Celtics Nation is baying for Brad Stevens to be just booted out.
Yeah, I'm against that.
Yeah, I'm against it too. I particularly liked his his comment the other day when he turned down the Indiana contract and he called himself a mass hole. That was amazing.
He's like, I'm a Patriots fan. I eat Dunkin' Donuts all day. I'm a complete mass hole.
It's brilliant. So you'd be comfortable staying strong as you are now, heading into the playoffs with lower expectations? I mean, these guys have been pretty phenomenal for a few years now.
If you'd have asked me like 2 weeks or more ago, I'd have been like, no, we need to make this trade. Now I'm a bit more like not as up for it as I was before. Like if it was maybe one pick or like second rounders, I think I'd be more okay with it. If it's more than one first and we're getting someone like Aaron Gordon or Harrison Barnes, I'd be a bit more like, that's a lot for not very much gain.
I mentioned the treasure trove earlier. How many picks do the Celtics have left?
They're all gone.
They're all gone.
Yeah, it's just our own.
Which
now.
one do they go in? How do they get rid of them?
Yeah,
have they used them all?
We've had loads. Yeah. So like the Grant Williams, the Carson Edwards, the more so really like the people
Any
that
of
we've
those
missed
you
out
wish
on
to
the
take
past
back?
few. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I like Grant Williams, but you look at taking someone like Romeo Langford, a pick before Brandon Clark. How much would Brandon Clark help us out now in that front court? He looked really good. Not taking Desmond Bain and giving that pick to Memphis last year, he could give us a bit more shooting. You always get this with the draft, and there's guys that you'd wish you had. But yeah, it doesn't look great when we've not got any roster spots left really, because we've got so many young guys that don't really contribute. There's a lot of guys that are like long-term projects who don't really suit the timeline of Brown and Tatum.
I think that's fair. That's why I thought maybe someone like Gordon would help, because I think he's 28, so he's still, you know, he's the right side of 30, and it gives it a year to bed in. I hope they don't fluff this trade exception, because it's a huge deal for them this off season. Let's move on to nothing but Nick's silly nonsense.
Cue the theme.
Nothing but Nick's silly nonsense.
And it's so silly this week that it actually comes from Hugh and not Nick. Luka Doncic recently became the global hydration officer for BioSteel. What other basketball players would earn a made-up job title for random marketing ploy, and what company would they represent?
I'm interested to know what direction you went with this, because I thought long and hard, and it didn't really give me much in terms of
I struggled
result.
with this. This was one of the toughest ones.
Yeah, I went with Nasir Little as the official athletic ambassador to the USA for Tesco, because every little helps. Have you got a badumtish, Kirk?
Just play the next. Play the next comment.
I'm waiting for it. And the other one, I wrote this. I mean, we had this question a couple of weeks ago and didn't get to it, so I've had this answer written down since then. I'd have Kyrie, Harden, and the Nets for the faces of chief barristers on the worst lawyers in the world, because they offer no defense and they leave you wide open to get punished.
I'm glad we managed to leave that 5 minutes after the word bans came. That's terrible. I didn't actually know that was coming either. We didn't script that at all. No. So me prolonging getting back to it and allowing those, that would have been terrible if the word ban would still be in play. Mine's rubbish as well. I've as well. No, it is rubbish as well. Russell Westbrook. He's going to be my director of Say What, because you know that stank face he pulls when basically anything happens. He's just like,
Yeah.
and he can be on a car comparison site or an insurance site where you've taken the quote and you haven't compared it, and you paid how much, and he's just going to pull that stank face and then walk off. That's literally it.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I struggled with that significantly.
Really?
Right, Talking D, Discourse on Discord. There was some Rookie of the Year chat yesterday, briefly. There was some Fantasy League shenanigans going on. Which
It
involved...
got controversial last night.
Was it last night or the night before? I'm confused.
Oh,
It was midnight, whenever it was,
yeah.
and my phone was lighting up with trades that I had to then go and veto because they
It
were
was
not.
nearly a bit of karma because someone traded for LaMelo, hardly giving anything up. And then if that would have actually gone through and he gets injured for the whole season, it's like,
Shall I reverse veto it?
some justice there.
I went full David Stern, Chris Paul to the Lakers, and vetoed a load of trades because they weren't made in the best spirit of the league. But we'll move on from that. We've got some listener questions. We've got quite a few actually to get through. Hooping and Luton with the 76ers, and he was on last week's show, and he was really pissed off that I didn't ask this question on that show. With the 76ers unveiling their new Bellend jerseys today to pair up with their Chatsworth Estate Tribute City edition, what musical instruments would you like to see other teams associate themselves with?
To reference Anchorman, I'd like the Jazz to have a jazz flute.
But, see, I've also picked jazz music.
Yeah.
But as we know, the Jazz moved to Utah where they don't allow music. So I'm going to have to give it to the Pelicans, and they can have like a silhouette of a jazz band or something on their jerseys. Have you got any others?
I mean, like the Irish tin whistle for the Celtic. That's it. I'm out.
Okay, so New York, the origin of, well, the birthplace of hip hop. They could have turntables, either the Knicks or the Nets. That'd be cool, or the outline of all of the Sugar Hill Gang. But the one I was particularly proud of was, what if Memphis wore Elvis suit inspired unis?
Hey, that's not bad.
With nice big collars.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Sequins all the way down.
Exactly. It would be amazing. A nice little cape on the back.
Yeah.
And yeah. Imagine in fact, you could have the cape, and the jumpsuit could be like the warm-ups, and they could just all walk out with canes and aviators on. That'd be amazing. Let's move on. Hick 4, with the recent release of Last Chance U, the basketball documentary on Netflix, whose school/younger basketball experience would make the best Last Chance U series? And does anyone's coach compare with Coach Mosley? You want to take that?
Yeah, just as a clarification, and I know he's not here to answer, are we taking this as like which NBA player, or like out of us? Which one resonates?
I've taken it as us.
I went that way as well.
Yeah. Okay.
My only basketball experience, I did play a little bit in school, but literally nobody else did, and we didn't do it in PE. We didn't have any clubs or anything like that. So I said to my PE teacher, who I got on quite well, and I said, if there's ever like an inter-school tournament, let me know, and I'll try and get a team together so we can go and do it. And he did, and we went to like an inter-school thing. I spent the whole day going around recruiting all these people. It's basically all my mates that did not play any sports, and then a couple of the most athletic guys that I just hoped could play basketball. And we went and played like 8 games and scored 1 basket in the whole tournament. Oh, it's bad. And the guy that scored it was a proper, we did Stoke justice. It was like a Rory Delap throw-in, and it just like hit
I don't know who Rory Delap is. Why are you making a football reference?
He hit the backboard with such force, and then it just died and fell straight into the basket. It was amazing. There was no like technique or anything to it. It was brilliant.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's took the words out of my mouth, Kurt. I don't think my basketball experience would be any way comparable to what goes on in Last Chance U. I've only watched a couple of the episodes so far, but in year 9 or 10, the school basketball coach, the PE teacher who was coaching the basketball team, which was basically a bunch of hockey players and rugby players who were bored, was teaching them to shoot incorrectly. And being the pedant that I am, I pointed this out to him. And he was one of those old school teachers who's like, well, if you think you can do it better. I was like, yeah, I could do this better. And we ended up playing 1-on-1 to see who'd coach the team.
No way. This is like from a film.
And I beat him 11-zip.
Oh.
And at that
yeah,
point,
you win this question.
He I coached the team then from year, I don't know if it was 9 or 10, but all the way through to the end of A levels. I think we only lost one game after that. And I was just like, yep.
Nice.
And yeah, he didn't really like me, but had a respect for me after that, I think. So that was a fun story. God, I did have some, like, we used to go to away games. The one game we lost, we were so pumped about going to play it, and it was a terrible. We played on courts where one of the hoops is half a foot lower, that sort of thing. Typical English basketball. But we, I had behind me. I've got the Michael Jordan DVDs, and my mate had brought his like the then latest laptop out, so it was whirring. So we'd changed the DVD region. We were watching the DVD on the way over there. Everyone got really pumped, and then we couldn't even buy a basket. It was terrible. We got smashed. But that was the one game we lost. In terms of Coach Mosley, I don't know anyone like it. But when I used to play National League at Bullets, there was a crosstown rival called Birmingham Excel, and they had a guy who sounds very similar to him, like as in would get on the floor and run with guys and do all that sort of stuff and get involved. I never got the pleasure of being coached by him, but I saw him coaching once, and I was just like, this guy's mad. But it's weirdly amazing.
I did learn recently that PE teacher that never taught us any basketball was also a part-time fireman and wore sunglasses all the time at school and had the amazing talent of being able to sleep standing up. So he'd spend all night on call as a fireman, come to school, and then just sleep during the breaks with his sunglasses on.
That's the documentary.
Yeah. Make it about his life. Forget the basketball team.
That's mad. Absolutely mad. Another question from Elliot. Whenever I see teams do a full court press on inbounds, it's so coming for the unbounded. What? I should have read this before I copied and pasted it in. Whenever I see teams do a full court press on the inbounds, it seems to create unbounded panic and cause the other team to mess up. Why isn't this done by teams more commonly? Do you want to hit that? I'm happy to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just that I think it's one of them where it catches teams by surprise because it doesn't happen very often. I think if you do it every play, it becomes quite easy to get through the defense and score. I don't know if you've got anything else.
Yeah, well, firstly, if you tried to play full court press for 48 minutes, you'd be absolutely knackered. You'd be destroyed. And with the amount of front court space that it creates, there's a lot more room once the ball's crossed half court for the offense to be going downhill with a lot more space to get to the rim. So you're giving up a higher percentage shot essentially. And although they cause momentary disruption, if you're doing it again and again, they're quite easy to neutralize through various schemes. So it works as like a quick hit disruptive thing. And you actually find that in the current NBA, the goal of the full court press isn't to turn the ball over. It's to slow down the offense from getting into the front court. So you've taken away, 8 seconds of the 24-second shot clock, giving them less time essentially to set up their half court offense. I think there was a Kevin Durant pod, the Etceteras, with our old friend Mr. Ball Senior, who basically he was arguing that you should full court press all the time, and KD just went, no, the skill level in the NBA is too high that you would get absolutely destroyed in that scenario.
You do see it a bit more in like the European leagues and stuff like that, but
with the court dimensions are slightly smaller as well. And I guess the skill level's a bit lower and the guys aren't quite as athletic. And to follow that up, we had another question from Elliot. Questions galore because I missed one of his last week. Gladiator is my favourite film. I watch it at least once a month. During Maximus's one-on-one duel with Tigris of Gaul in the Colosseum, we see tigers emerge from the basement of the arena. What hidden feature would you add to a basketball court for added danger / entertainment?
I've got a couple.
This
a
is
very
a great
simple
question.
one. It is an amazing question. is just like the boundaries of the court. There's just a 10-foot drop. After so if you like jump diving out of bounds to save a ball, you're gone. You just disappear. The other one is, can we introduce house robots like on Robot Wars in the corners of the court? So if you go like close into one of the corners, you get like what
Just
they
get a leg torn off,
circular
some kind of circular
Sergeant
saw.
Bash coming out. Yeah.
I went sort of similar to that second one, but nowhere near as extreme. So that we used to have a drill where you'd stand on one corner of the baseline, and whoever you're going against stood the other, and the coach would pass one of you the ball, and then both of you made a beeline horizontally for the same hoop, and it was like to try and teach you how to finish it under contact and duress, and quite often ended with people just getting poleaxed midair. So I would quite like to see, if it were possible, some kind of like you'd have two subs on the tee on the end you're defending. You would have two extra players just waiting out of bounds, and if there's a fast court, full court breakaway, that one of them's allowed to go, and it's just like so they get momentary 6 players to try and stop an open layup. But obviously that swings things heavily away from the player on offense. But maybe you could do something like it's worth 3 points or 4 points or something like that, and you get extra points if it's a dunk. That would be, I think that would create more entertainment. Completely ridiculous, obviously, but I think that would work. Definitely work. No one is going to get destroyed midair at all, are they? Okay, Richard Fang. Now, you might have to carry me on this one because I don't know anything about WWE, but following a disappointing return from The Fiend at WWE Fastlane, that sounds like a number you need to call if you're in trouble. I was reminded some of the worst wrestling returns in history, but as this is a basketball podcast, allegedly, I was wondering, in your opinion, what were some of the worst player returns from injury in NBA history? As in guys who came back, they were just not as good.
I am the wrong guy to ask about wrestling. Then there is like a very strange amount of talk in the Discord about WWE, WWF, whatever it is now. I don't know. I mean, in terms of injuries, you've got like Grant Hill, T-Mac. There's Greg Oden, who I guess couldn't really have had a comeback or a return because he was injured from the start. But just in terms of what he could have been, was up there, getting picked ahead of Durant and that. But yeah, in terms of linking it to wrestling, I have nothing.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think there was supposed to be a wrestling link.
Yeah.
But the two for me were Brandon Roy, whose knees just disintegrated. He was an all-star, an incredible clutch player, just an absolute phenom, really. And then Derrick Rose, who obviously MVP one season. And I mean, to be fair play to Rose, he's managed to carve out a longer career post-injury. It's just so disappointing when you think of what he could have been for another 8 years or so from that 2011 sort of time. Okay, next one before I reminisce too much about injured guys. Ben Bean. I think we actually covered that one in the. If we hit all the questions, because we did them all in the.
I think we've done it. I think we're actually ahead of time for the first week ever.
We were ahead of time last week as well, but give it time. We've still got to get through games to watch.
True.
On that note,
a really in-depth discussion about
games of the week. What to watch? Who have you got?
I've got Nets Jazz 2 a.m. Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I think obviously two teams that are very much in form, leading the way. It'd be an interesting matchup. You kind of got this amazing defense and well-rounded team, and then you've got this other team that is dominated by the stars. So it'll be a good matchup. I think it's a bit of a reach to say it's a finals preview, but it'll be a nice watch nonetheless.
You need to start writing your selection in the shared doc, because that's the same selection I've written in the shared doc.
Brilliant.
And you know what? I even swerved because I figured you were going to pick the other option that I was going to go for, which is the back-to-back series Milwaukee Boston, which I think now you're making me think off the top of my head. I think it was Wednesday night and Friday. No, it must be Wednesday night and Friday night. Sounds about right. But I think the Friday night one is a reasonable tip-off time, either at 12:30 or 11:30. And I honestly thought you were going to pick that, so I thought, you know what, I'll let you have the homer card.
Nobody wants to watch the Celtics at the moment. I mean, it's not nice. we play one good game against the Magic and everyone's like, we're back. Are all the problems fixed? We don't need to make a trade. But nah, I mean, it's been pretty miserable for the past couple of weeks.
They don't have to watch it for the Celtics. You've got second in the run for MVP, and now he's got the tank of a teammate that is PJ Tucker.
Yeah, fair. And if he gets minutes, that'll be a really interesting watch just to see what the lineups look like, how they play Giannis, whether they put Tucker at the 5, or it will be an interesting matchup just to see what the Bucks do more than anything else.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how this changes their defense, which has been critiqued significantly so far this season. I think, my game. It's my second choice game of the week, but nonetheless, it is my game of the week now. On that note, let's have a quick look. So, shout out to OGM717, Gallowgate9, Jamie the Tweeter. Oh, Jamie the Tweeter. Thanks for watching, Jamie. Name dropped him earlier with his tweets. And the subscription from Hooping and Looting. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in tonight. Don't forget you can subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime to the channel. If you subscribe, then Kirk will make you a fancy little avatar that you can see if you are watching, running along the bottom of our screen. That's just, I never understand what's going on the bottom of the screen. It's just carnage to me. But I'm really annoyed that somehow Red Panda is no longer there, which I was promised she would be, and she's not. So Kirk, you failed me for the last time.
I think I've got to choose my avatar. Kirk promised that I could have my own custom one, and I've yet to make a decision. So any suggestions, please let me know.
Ooh. It's going to be
I don't just want like a standard player. I want something like off the radar.
What, like a mascot? Although you're a Celtics fan,
mascot.
Your mascot is basically a short white guy.
I'm not even lucky. That guy is flipping annoying. But...
I'm glad you agree. He's the worst mascot in the league. It's terrible. Okay, there you go. That's the task for next week. People watching live, come up with an avatar for Tom to have that's not a player. Brilliant. What about Air Bud, the dog from the films? See if
I might have to have someone from Space Jam. It's one of my favourite films.
Space
Air
Jam.
Bud. Yeah.
A Monstar. Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's not a bad shout.
Why don't Kirk? Here we go. We set the bar high for Kirk. Kirk, can you make a Monstar equivalent of Tom?
Oh wow!
Or what about
carrying a pillow?
Yeah, I was just. What about a pillow in a basketball jersey? Anyway,
we have minutes to spare.
We're getting really off track now. Thank you very much to everyone who has watched tonight. If you're not already following us, make sure you do at Double Clutch UK, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. There's a community on Discord. Come join that. Chat basketball with us every day. Discord.me/doubleclutch. And if you're not watching us online right now, you can do at twitch.tv/doubleclutchuk. That's it from us. We will see you next week. Take care.
Have a good one.
Oh, so you can't see this, but I can?